some people to show up and say hello to me. Let's get this set up. Yeah, how's that? Okay. Sunshine when she's gone. Oops. And the sunshine, she's gone. She's always gone to time. She goes away. I channeled a little Bill Withers today. Not sure why. It just came up. But I'm not going to be talking about Bill Withers unless somehow it seems relevant at some point. I am going to be talking about other stuff, current events, and what we can make of them. Hello, hello. Hi, everybody. I'm just giving it a little bit of time so some more people can join us. Thanks for hopping on. How are you this fine afternoon? I decided to come to the beach where there's a little bit of a breeze. Beach where there's a little bit of a breeze. And it's pretty. So you can get, hola. I'm so much better today. I had to get my energy right. I wish you guys could see the beach. I don't feel like getting out of the car. There it is. There it is. Yeah, I don't feel like getting out though because there's no shade out there really. So that's your peek at the beach today. But anyway, yeah, I wanted to come out, and of course this whole thing has been on my mind again, as I'm sure it's been on the minds of many, many, many people in the US and around the world, because, you know, not cool. Not cool. So, some of you guys probably were on the live stream that I did the other night. Must have been like a day or two after the actual incident, right? And of course I'm talking about the George Floyd criteria, legally speaking, in my opinion. You know, and I was very upset, like many of us are very upset about this. It's not okay what happened. But I had to process that. I really had to process it. And, you know, the emotions we've been feeling, and you know, like what to make of that. Like it was a shocking thing to see, and it was highly disturbing. I mean, I felt really like traumatized by seeing that video. I think I mentioned the other night, I've never seen a person die before. I don't even think I've seen a dead person. Like I remember one time when I was probably in my teens, I went to a funeral, family friend, a teenager died, and I went to that person's funeral. But otherwise, I really have not seen a dead. And so I just had to process all of that. And I'm sure we're all still processing it. There's deep sadness. There's, like I said, trauma. There's this feeling of injustice. I've seen a lot of people putting online, I'm leaving the US, like that's it. I'm just making my plan. I'm saving my money. I've seen a lot of that stuff. Back here, you obviously don't want to be back here. Just a lot, like lots of different things are happening. I've had some exchanges with some white people and kind of felt out where they're coming from, looked at some things I saw online. And so I'll tell you this. So I caught a video last night that someone that I know did, and she's a biracial woman. She's actually someone that I do some of my energy work with. She lives outside of the US now, and she doesn't normally comment on things like of this nature, but because of, again, the intensity of the emotion around this, and she said was that apparently in one of her groups that she, you know, with other people that she was working on stuff with, evidently it sounds like there were some non-black or brown people, it sounds like just some white people who were saying they really felt so upset they wanted to speak about it on their own platforms, whether it was, you know, their web page or their, you know, whatever it was, I'm with it, but they didn't. And when she said, well, why didn't you? They were saying because they were afraid that they were going to say something wrong. They were going to get it wrong. And I don't think they said that this part, but I think what ultimately it boiled down to was that they felt like they might get criticized by people who felt like, well, what right do you have to comment on this as a black man and you don't know and all that kind of stuff. And they didn't want to sort of get into that trap. And that does happen, right? There may be very well-meaning, and I'm saying white people, it could be other people too, but it could be very well-meaning white people. And white is broad, obviously, right? We can talk about Europeans, and I just mean, like, generally speaking, Caucasian people of European ancestry, just generally speaking, who may be essentially like allies of ours who feel like this is outrageous and it's not okay. They have all the same feelings that the rest may feel secure enough or empowered enough to speak out about it, but there are others who don't. And some of it, may be because they feel like, I don't want to, house divided, right? I don't want to trip a wire. I don't want to offend anyone. I'm not black, and so I don't know exactly what it's like, and so maybe I should just be quiet. And the woman who did this video the other night was commenting, saying, listen, number one, you do need to speak up, right? Even if you get it wrong. And here's the thing, you're going to get it wrong, right? Because you haven't had the experience that black people have had, and so you can't empathize. You can sympathize, but you don't know what it's like to have been living in, excuse me, like under this, like a shadow of this oppression. And even like, for example, white women who may be married to black men, things like that. Actual black person and being looked at when you go in a store, or feeling like you didn't get the job because of this when you know the person who did get it. It's like, that person was not more qualified than I was, those kinds of things. But still, there is a responsibility to speak up just as a human being, okay? Even if you get it wrong. And I'm not talking about like just wildly saying ridiculous things. We're talking about people who really are conscientious and are trying to be helpful. And the other part of that is that those of us who are, I'll say, directly impacted because we're black or brown or what have you, and have had this experience directly, or have had family members who've had the experience directly, we have to cut those people a little bit of slack. In a lot of instances, they really are trying and they really do mean well, even if, even if they don't get exactly right, even if some of their languaging is not quite right, maybe grades like nails on a chalkboard, or they're like, let me give you an example. I saw a video today on Facebook, which I ended up posting to my Facebook page. And it was a video that a white woman, presumably she's an American white woman, older woman, posted like from her car like this, saying, like, she started out by saying, look, normally I don't do any of this social media stuff. And I think she is married to a former law enforcement person. And she was like, my husband was a great guy and he really tried to help people and all this kind of stuff. But eventually she got around to saying that what she saw in that same video that we all saw was absolutely heinous and unacceptable and murderous and all of that. And before she went into that, she did say that, well, that she tried to reserve judgment. Hey, Hugh! She tried to reserve judgment because there were times she knew, like from with her husband and other things that have come out, that sometimes, you see a part of something and you don't know the whole story. You don't know if that person was a threatening figure in, somehow how the story played out, or you don't know what had happened beforehand. You don't know, and it's true. And, it kind of tweaked because I was like, if he was threatening, that whole like coded language, right? So, and she went on to say some other things, and some of it was a little like, anyway, you guys tell me, hopefully there's no wind noise. It is a little bit windy here, but I have on my trusty wind mic. Thank you, Hugh. So hopefully you're not hearing the wind interference, but let me know if you are, and I guess I'll put the window up or something. But I have a nice breeze coming on me. Anyway, my point is that, and I think maybe the whole video she did was 5, 6, 7 minutes long. I don't know. But she went on to say that there was no doubt, like this was clear. Oh, great, thank you. That this was murder, right? And as an attorney, I'll tell you, I'm not a crim lawyer, but murder generally, so you need to have a mental state and an act for crimes. The mental state in murder, there's different mental states. That's why there's like first degree, second degree. But first degree murder is premeditated with malice aforethought. Aforethought means you thought about it beforehand. You knew you were going to do something bad. Specifically, in this case, kill another human being. And then you take their life. Obviously, the act is that you take their life by whatever means. you know, I'm sure it's going to get argued in court at some point. But in my mind, this was malice aforethought, because it's one thing, even if they, let's just say, I mean, my understanding about this story is that George Floyd was suspected of forgery, which he did not do. Rest was already in handcuffs on the ground. So what's the threat? Why is there a reason to keep him like that and then put one's neck on his windpipe, which ultimately will crush it and suffocate him? People are supposed to be trained and they know how to do this and protect themselves, and, you know, and what do you call it? Like, not I'm trying to think of from creating harm. This man was not it wasn't a threat to anybody. He wasn't actively trying to harm anybody. At some point, someone said, "Get in the car," and he's like, "Okay, just let me breathe." So that's, in my mind, that's malice aforethought. You know, if you continue to apply this pressure to this man's neck, he's going to not be able to breathe. He's going to die. That's murder. So anyway, back to this woman. So she, in her video, was saying, listen, this is not okay. And she was really trying to choose her words carefully. She said that, I'm trying to choose my words carefully because she didn't want to lose her audience, who is presumably very, very white like her. And when I say very white, I mean like white people who might not ordinarily be willing to engage in these kinds of conversations and be willing to look at themselves and be willing to consider that officers do something wrong. I think she talked about it was like the blue code or something, like, you know, totally supporting law enforcement no matter what. She was trying to be very intentional and careful about how she delivered her message. And her message was, this is fucked up. This is not okay. And not only that, but white people, this is on us. This is our responsibility to step up and fix this. We cannot go to black people and say, well, you know, maybe you need to, it's like, stop looking to the victims to problem solve. Stop looking to the victims to explain to everybody else why we're hurt, why it's not okay, all this kind of stuff. We need to step up. And I was like, good for her. But back to my original point about the woman, the energy person, who was saying to other people, listen, to the white people who didn't want to speak up because they were afraid of making a mistake. So the one side is that there were people who were afraid of making a mistake, so they didn't want to speak up, the white people. The other half of that is that black people ease up on these people who really are saying, this is not okay, we need to step up, and white people, this is our responsibility. It was posted on a forum that was mainly black people. I mean, I'm assuming it's all black people, but I can't be sure. And sure enough, some of those black folks were like, I didn't want to get past the first 3 minutes of what she said and blah, 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 all that stuff. And I was like, hold up, you guys, hold up. I understand that, yeah, she said some things that were a little hard, you know, it's like not quite right and everything, but she even acknowledged, I'm not coming through the lens of this. Like she said, I'm one of those people who would say, what racism, what do you mean? So she caught herself. But when black people are, or whoever it is, continues to go, like, I just totally shut someone down, yeah, it's unsafe for everybody. Yeah, I mean, we're all affected, no matter who you are, no matter what walk of life you're in, rich, poor, black, white, no matter what neighborhood, all that. But my point is that when we shut people down who are really trying to become our allies, who are trying to support the injustices that we're outraged about, you know, it's better to like offer some constructive criticism that, number one, is effective to the audience they're trying to get to, who we really need. These are the people we need to get the message through to. Black people are sold. We already know there's a problem, right? Brown people, Latinos, Asians, whoever, we're sold because we know it. We've experienced it firsthand. And there's some white people out there who get it too and who are already like, this is not okay. But then there's those other ones who are clueless, are just tone deaf, like don't see it, don't want to see it, whatever. And those are the people who need the healing, basically. And a lot of people like you and I are not going to be able to go into those communities, into those boardrooms or PTA meetings or whatever it is, and speak to people who need to hear it and have them receive it. Because they're not trying to hear from us. They've already decided we're not okay, they don't like us, they're afraid of us, whatever. So when there's white people who can help them by saying, look, you know, you deliver the message to your people the way that they need to hear it, but also just breathe, and you know, these are the things that you say in this way, great. So just be careful. So I want to start off with that. So that's my message. So if you know of a white person, or you have white friends, you're married to a white person or whatever it is, you work with people, all that type of stuff, and they're trying to be supportive, but they're tripping over their words or kind of messing it up, you know, you can feel their heart, right? You can feel their heart. So I would not say discount them wholesale, just write them off. I think that's a mistake. And I think integration create, build bridges, not tear it down. And if we're just so angry with for there to be some type of ability to talk to one another and to hear one another, then we're continuing to lose. We don't need any more of that. So keep that in mind as you have conversations about this. Listen to what their heart is saying, not so much the words that they use, and you'll know if they're way off in left field and they need to be left alone because they're just, you know, like evil and that kind of thing, or they're trying to, but they just don't, you know, you can help. Like, for example, this woman referred to people, she said, well, and the Orientals, you know what I mean? Like, she clearly, she needs a little help. But she didn't say anything derogatory about Asian people. She just used the wrong terminology. Well, it's like saying colored. I mean, we used to be called colored. So anyway, so let me say this to you. I made a couple of notes today because I didn't want to just ramble. So obviously what happened this time, and there's been how many times, you know, I mean, we can talk about U.S. history going way, way back. We can talk about European colonization going, you know, hundreds of years back, all that kind of stuff. We can even talk about just humanity in general. But I'm talking about this particular instance. It was terrible, right? And it was terrible to witness it. I don't know if any of you have seen other videos where this kind of thing has happened, or have seen things in like real life, if you have family members who've experienced this kind of abuse or what have you. But for me, this was particularly traumatic because I had never seen anything like this before. And I was like, just, you know, you saw, like, moved to tears and just sickened. I felt like queasy in my stomach. And so I think it's important to process that and to acknowledge, you know, just how fucked up it is and how rageful that can make us feel. That's why people riot. I spoke to a woman today, a white Canadian woman, and she's like, yeah, but people are rioting, and don't they understand? It's like, that's not, why would they do that? That's counterproductive, and it's ruining their own neighborhood. And I was like, you have to understand. I said, this, right? They're not concerned about, they're not gonna be able to shop at that store. That store might be racist overflowing, and it's happened before. So again, process that anger, process the rage, hopefully in as constructive a manner as possible. And you have to decide what that is for you, whether you need to talk it out, whether you need to go run and like physically get it out, whether you need to speak about it, you know, I don't know, but process that. And that's what I've been doing. I definitely done like some writing, some meditating. I did some chanting again today with a Buddhist friend of mine, and that always feels really good. Just moving the energy out, because anger is just energy, right? It's like tight, pent up energy, but it's moving. And so we don't want to just be stuck in us. That's where disease and things come from, right? So you got to move that energy out of you in whatever way. That's number one. It's actually 1.5, because the first one was that. The message about, like, you know, helping people who are trying to help us. Then I wanted to get into, like, why do you think so many people were allowed to see that video, right? Like, for example, when there's soldiers who get maimed and tortured and horribly, let's say, dismembered in whatever part of the world, and they're like, oh, ISIS, you know, or whatever terrorist group, in my opinion, the U.S. is, but anyway, when there's some foreign bad actor, we'll call it, who's like chopped up some soldiers or something, or, you know, cut the head off of somebody. Shallow understanding. Okay, well, I'm not gonna do that right. Let me focus. Hey, Avery, how are you? I want to remind you of that in a second, but let me finish my thought. Do you hear that? I don't know if you heard that. So let me just say, there's these little tiny pickup trucks that roll through the streets. They're like, blah, 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 and this one is selling limes. He's got a truck full of limes. Sometimes it's potatoes, yucca, whatever. So why are we not allowed, for example, to see, not that you want to see a beheaded body, but that's down. But this video was allowed to be up for quite a while. It may still be up in some places, I don't know, but it was allowed to be up for at least 48 hours for, like, what, 41 million people to see, and then forward here and there. I mean, who knows? Like, a lot of people saw that. And it was a slow burn video, right? It wasn't like a boom, a shot in the back or something where the person falls and it's over. It was like a slow, like, we watched a man lose his life on video. And that's deep. That's like watching, it's like watching a lynching, right? Like, this, they don't just die. I mean, I don't know, but I'm assuming when there's lynching, you know, there may be a sudden thing, but there's also, like, probably some body shaking, and you could see on the ground, he soiled himself, he lost his bodily functions, right? Lost control of them. Same thing with lynchings. You see, like, evidence of, you know, urination, things like that, because, you know, once people's brains or, or nervous systems are cut off, that all goes. It's like, it's the indignity of it. And we were allowed to see all of that. And here, the people, the bystanders, like pleading, like helplessly pleading. And a guy who lives in my town, he's from the UK, so a white guy. We were kind of doing a little back and forth, not animosity, but just a little back and forth online about like what this was. And I was like ranting. I'm like, that's just fucked up. And I was like, okay, okay. Because he's like, well, the other guy, there was an Asian guy, and there was, what color was the shopkeeper who initially called in the forgery charge, and what about these people, and how come the bystanders didn't get involved? And I was like, okay, first of all, you may not see racist things. I'm not even going to go there, but they were there. But as far as the bystanders, who from what I could tell were primarily black, there was one white lady who came over, said she was with the fire department, and then I guess someone who came out of the shop who was like, it's my dad's shop or whatever he was talking about. He appeared to be non-black, but I'm talking about the bystanders who would like, get off of him, get off of him, get off of him. Those sounded to me like black people. Why didn't they jump in? Except when you think about the fact that they didn't want to lose their lives either. And so what are you going to rush and try to pull off the cop who's obviously murdering a man in front of you and think that you're not going to be a target too? That's why they didn't jump in. And it's horrible. And again, why were we allowed to witness this? Not just the murder, not just the, losing his bodily fluids. I mean, all this stuff, it's like layers and layers. Why were we allowed to see this? What's up with that? What is that messaging sending to us? What is that telling us? Why? Who controls the media? Who controls so many new TV shows? I think we become sadly anesthetized. Well, I'm not anesthetized. I think you're right, Avery. Hola, Jose. There are a lot of people who are desensitized, and maybe seeing like someone's blood splattered all over a wall or their brains blown out doesn't make you flinch. I mean, I couldn't sleep right after seeing that. But what I'm saying is, who does that benefit, right? Who would want for so many people to see that, and why? Why, right? It's not to say that, I mean, think about it. If you own the TV station, would you have shown that video? Maybe you would have. And if you would have, why would you have? Does it do harm to the family? Exactly. Of course it was for the world to see. But my quote, let everyone see how awful this was. No, I think there's deeper, more insidious messaging than that. You want to know what I think? Of course you do. I think that it sends a message. One, it sends a message that there's this silent, I mean, sure, we can say that one cop, right? Or those cops, we can say that. But who empowers those cops and who empowers those people? Because there are people out there, there's a small, very silent minority, and very small minority compared to all the rest of us, who's not only allowing this to happen, but encouraging it, who's saying, yeah, you're not going to get punished, Not only are you not going to get punished, we're encouraging you to do this kind of thing. That's why so many of these officers and other people, whoever they are, feel emboldened. And it's not just Trump. I know people say, well, Trump. Yes. But he's even being empowered to do what he's doing. I'm getting messages. He's nothing but a figurehead. He's a puppet. I mean, come on. Do you think really he could have been in office for this long doing all the crazy stuff he's done? If somebody wasn't there, like, running interference for him, that's my feeling. And so I feel like I'm trying to ask the questions, like underneath the questions. Like, obviously it was a horrible thing to see, but why were we allowed to watch that? Why were we allowed to be psychologically traumatized? Who wants to have us psychologically traumatized? Who wants to have us feeling so shaken that we're now afraid, we are, wanting to, it just disrupts your life? And why would they want us to feel that way? That's my question. And so I think, just think about it. What's the intention behind that? What's the intention behind leaving that kind of video up for so long for people to see? And then, do you want to see it? Do you want to watch that? Do you want to participate in that? I mean, like I said, when it first came up, I was like, I don't want to see this. I already knew I don't want to see it. And I made myself watch it because I felt like there was something important about witnessing, the vile and violent inhumanity. The World Health Organization, Trump simply repeatedly. Yeah, master talking points. Yeah, there's not his talking points. I mean, he may advocate those things. Somebody else is making it okay for him to say that. That's what I'm talking about. There's the people whose names we don't know, the people whose faces we may never see, or they're standing behind you in the grocery store and you'll never know it. They might even smile at you. Oh, hey, how you doing? But they are like the serious evil ones, the people that we don't even know who they are. I mean, you can go up to, like, they talk about the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and where all that came from, you know, the robber barons, you know, way, way back. And even before them, like in Germany and, you know, and by the way, I'm going to put the link for the ISIS papers, those of you who have an interest in reading that. If you haven't read it, I'll put a link in the description box and you can check it out. Amazing, fascinating reading. But my point is, and I'm not going to harp on this anymore, but like, who would leave that up? Why would they leave it up? What is it they're trying to guess, really take down hideous material for the sake of the First Amendment? Nah. The First Amendment has limitations. The First Amendment has limitations. And, you know, I don't know about that. And like I said, if that's the case, why not let us see the beheaded body of the soldiers? You know, maybe a loved one. I want to see my husband's whole body. I mean, that sounds gruesome, but it seems interesting to me. When's the last time you saw a white man being choked to death? Or, you know, shot in the back or whatever? The black one. I missed that one. Okay, let me say this too. So I mentioned the ISIS papers, and I pulled that out. Again, I started reading it, and at the very beginning, Dr. Welsing, Francis Cress Welsing, says about why it is that there's this like huge hatred or a desire for what's called white supremacy, which I find to be a really interesting misnomer, because there's not a supremacy, right? I mean, it's a name for racism, but like technically, genetically speaking, the white gene is not supreme. It is inferior. It is completely inferior. Oh, thank you. Someone just subscribed. How nice. Thank you so much. It is inferior, which is why if you mix a white gene with any other kind of gene, not even a black one, but like an Asian one, you're going to get a diminishment, a dissolution of the white gene. So they are genetically inferior, right? Their genes are not as strong as other genes because they're recessive. They're not dominant genes, right? According to the theory, I mean, it's fact, right? So white people inherently, they recognize this. You show up in a crowd and you know that you're, you know, if you, a person's like straight hair, let's say, and you mix it with a black person who has very tight, you know, coils in their curls, your child's hair is going to come out somewhere, you know, not straight. Flagged your post for being negative towards the cop. Is that incredible? Well, you know, Facebook, Google, YouTube, all of them are in cahoots, and maybe this video is going to get taken down too now because I've said that. But, you know, why are certain things being censored? This whole thing with COVID, right? Why is it being censored? Some of like the so-called factual material from these doctors who are saying this is bullshit. And anyway, you guys, once again, why? Why are certain things being censored? Who's behind it? What is it that they want us to hear, and what is it that they don't want us to hear? Why are certain messages allowed to be up? Why on Facebook, if you guys are on Facebook, why do they have now all these messages about... Anyway, so back to the ISIS paper. So Francis Cress Welsing is talking about the inherent inferiority, genetic inferiority of white people. And that is what makes them... Honestly, that she talks. So her background. She's dead now, but her background was that she was a clinical psychologist for children and others, and so she did a lot of studying and a lot of work around symbolism, and you know, like when children would pick up a doll and let's say, you know, paint the face red to make it angry or whatever, she really thoroughly researched these symbols, and it goes even to like the Washington Monument and the Jefferson Memorial, which is a dome, right? The monument, of course, is a big like an obelisk, which she said is, and so there's all of these different things, but so the Washington Monument is, you know, it's in the shape, it's like a long, well, it's an obelisk, right, with a pointed triangle top, which there's an ordinance from Washington, D.C., which says that no other building can be taller than the Washington Monument. Well, the monument, of course, is a symbol for a phallus, the white phallus, big power symbol. And why is a phallus a power symbol, right? And then the Jefferson Memorial is a dome, so a round shape. And apparently, I didn't know this, if you look at them from a certain distance away at a certain angle, it like lines up perfectly and resembles a penis and testicles. And there are all these different symbols, you know, guns and all these symbols, you know, ejecting bullets, even, you know, And she talked about the term people will use, like men use when they ejaculate, like shooting off. I mean, it gets really deep. And white men, like when they would lynch men frequently back in the day, they would cut off their testicles. Why that? You know, when you wear in cowboys, they'd wear guns in their holsters around the waist, which is where naturally their genitalia are. So I mean, it gets really deep. But anyway, the bottom line, according to her, which is fascinating research, is that it all has to do with their genetic inferiority and knowing that they will eventually be wiped out because, you know, they can never produce color. White people can never produce color. and black people, like the purest black, that's where you get all the colors from, right? You mix all the colors together and you get black. You take everything away and you're left with just white. So white is like the absence of that. And so meaning that they have a genetic inferiority. And that's where all of this essentially comes from. Their desire to want to reproduce and their desire to want to be able to be powerful, but inherently they are not. And so they're projecting this hatred, and frankly, it's actually more of like an envy onto black people and killing them. And it's very fascinating. And let me just say this. I have a lot of white friends. Like I have a lot of white friends that I love. They're dear friends. And so this is not about indicting every single white person on the planet. This is not about saying that white people are bad in general. But there are some truths, I believe, that have shown themselves. They have been evidenced over time, over history. And sorry, but that's just kind of the plain hard truth. And so I'll leave that at that. I guess the final thing I want to say is that just like I had to take a little bit of time and process how I was feeling and process like my anger and my pain, and I'm still doing that. I think it's important for all of us to really pay attention, pay attention to how we're feeling, pay attention to how these types of acts and others, right? Because it's cumulative. It's not just one thing that happened. It's this one reminds us of another, reminds us of another. Pardon me, maybe some personal thing that's happened in our lives. You know, whatever it is, maybe there's like microaggressions or macroaggressions on the job or just in traffic, all that kind of stuff. You know, we watch TV shows and things get played out all the time. And so, your environment, in yourself, be mindful of how you're feeling about all this stuff as you go through your days. You know, are you having more difficulty sleeping? Are you feeling more like angry or aggressive because of this? Are you feeling despondent and hopeless? Like, what's going on? And take care of yourself, right? If you're noticing people in your family who are really struggling, if you have, you know, sons or brothers or mothers or whoever it is who are really having a hard time with this, you know, we need to care for each other. And that includes actually even our white friends, right? Like, how are they feeling? Because they might be feeling really nervous right now. Like, okay, is everybody mad at me? Like, is it cool to call my black friend anymore and say, hey, what's up? Like, I don't know. But I think it's important. So I told you I did some chanting today with two women, and they're both white. One is from Denmark, I think she's Danish. The other one's Canadian. And we're all cool. Like, I have no issues with them. But I did bring up, because I actually cried a little bit. I got tearful at one point during the chanting, because, you know, it brings up energy and stuff. And she's like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. You know, I said, but I'm really, really affected by what's been happening lately. And so we talked about it a bit. And I talked about how, you know, like some of the things I'm mentioning here, I didn't go into deep detail because we were in a process, but I shared about that. And I think it was good. And it was important for me to say what I had to say about how I'm feeling and about the whole race thing. And so mind you, neither one of them is American. So they're not coming with the same filter that I'm coming from as an American black woman, right? And you can be mindful of that too. Like, you may be speaking with people who don't have the same experience you have, whether it's because it's a cultural difference or a difference of a privilege that they had because they're white, maybe, that they didn't have to worry about this. And so therefore, like, they don't see racism in the way that we see racism or recognize it when it happens. That doesn't mean that they're, that they're to be dismissed or that they're hardened or they're stupid. No, it just means that that's an opportunity to share with them in a non-accusatory way, but to share with them about, hey, look, this is how it's impacting me and members of my community, right? And you can hear from them about maybe, you know, what's going on with them. So it's not to help each other through this stuff, because obviously the intention is to divide us. When I go back to why do we get to see the video, the intention is to divide us, to make us angry, to make us, want to, kill somebody or hurt somebody or hate somebody. It's like, first of all, you start with yourself. Make sure that you can get your heart back to a place where you're feeling balanced and where you really do feel like you have love in your heart. And if you don't feel like you have love in your heart, whether it's you, it's like, make sure you're okay. And then once you're okay, however you get there, in a healthy way, of course, then you reach out and you try to help someone else maybe who's struggling, whether it's like just depression, they're feeling really sad, or whatever's going on. It's like, but I feel like we have a responsibility to one another, just as human beings, to help each other like elevate beyond the baser kinds of emotions. They're natural to come out. It's natural to feel angry. It's natural to feel sad. It's natural to feel, hopeless at times. But we don't want to stay there, right? We don't want to stay in the anger, because that's not productive. That's not helpful toward getting us where we want to be, which is to have everybody respect one another and have peace. And so feel the feelings, but then we want to move beyond them. I think that's it, you guys. I think that's it. Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you this. So the way I've already said a little bit about the way I'm processing this stuff is I wake up every morning and I say some type of I speak favor over my life, some type of prayer. And I'm not like asking God, I'm just saying, like, thank you for providing me with this amazing life. Thank you for that I'm totally healthy, and that, clients are coming to me asking me to work with them, and they're paying me what I want to be paid, and I have, great friends and family, and I have all these opportunities, and, I'm healthy, and my child's healthy, and we're thriving, and I just speak as though it is, even though sometimes it isn't, but I speak as though it is. And so I start my day with something that is powerful in that way. And then I move into so right now I'm doing a 40-day abundance kind of a process. I'm on day 35, I think it is today. I'm almost done. So make sure that my money is right. And can I tell you this, by the way? On day, I don't know what it was, the day shortly into the process, maybe day 6 or day 10 of this abundance thing, I received a completely unexpected, and I still don't know how it happened, surprise deposit into one of my bank accounts of multiple thousands of dollars. And I was like, whoa, where did this come from? I was checking my bank balance for something totally unrelated. Did not expect to see hardly anything, certainly not that amount in there. And it was like, all this money was in my account. I was like, what? And I know it's because I'm working on shifting my energy. And so the same thing I'm talking to you, I mean, you can do it about money, but I'm also talking about shifting your energy in terms of your heart, shifting your energy in terms of, if you're feeling angry, if you're looking at white people going, that motherfucker, whatever, let's move away from that. That's like the other night when I was talking to you guys and I said, listen, the men who allowed that death to happen, who participated in that death, we have to send them some healing energy. And people were like, I don't want to hear that. And how can you say that? And screw them and all this stuff. I was like, I know. Okay. All right. So maybe it was a little early to say that. For me, it wasn't too early, because even though it may be hard to do that, I recognize that is what we have to do. That doesn't mean we condone their behavior, of course. It doesn't mean that they don't need to get prosecuted and spend the rest of their lives in jail or face the death penalty or whatever the rule of law is in Minnesota. I don't know. That's not my point. We need to, get our own hearts right first, and then bond with other people. It doesn't have. I'm not saying like physically, but just energetically, we end up bonding with other people and sending more love, more compassion, more understanding, more patience. All those things that we want to receive, we send that out into the world, and we even send it intentionally to those 4 former police officers who had to have been completely out of touch with their souls and their spirits, to participate in that depraved behavior. Something is wrong with them. They're not okay, right? They're really not okay. And so my thing is be angry, but also send some of that healing to them, because how much better would it be? I mean, sure, they can spend the rest of their lives in jail, but even if they do, maybe they can do something positive. Maybe they can use that time, instead of joining the skinheads in jail and doing something that's totally have a complete evolutionary change of how they feel. And they are suddenly struck with oh my God, how could I have been that person? I was a monster. And they turn themselves around. They're able to then, offer something positive. That's my point. Now, some of you may be like, I'm never going to do that. And, you know, that's your prerogative. I think it's a missed opportunity. I do. I think it's a missed opportunity if we don't, at every possible opportunity ourselves, offer love out into the world. And if you can't do it specifically to those people, then just do it in general. Just send like your loving energy into the world. You know, when you're getting your gas at the gas station, just, you know, it could be just being grateful that you have money to pay gas. I mean, it could start with simple little things about, let me just be grateful that I don't have to get out of my car. Somebody else is pumping gas, and so I'm grateful that I don't have to do it. I'm also grateful that that person has a job. I'd rather love it to the vibes too. Exactly. The hate is just too heavy to bear. That's exactly right, Avery. It's like, it's only going to hurt us. It only hurts us. And I know for a lot of people, depending upon what your own life experience has been, it may be really hard to muster love in this moment. It may take a while. And so that's why I said, heal yourself first, right? You can't give what you don't have. So if you're coming from a place where you're angry and bitter and crushed emotionally and spiritually, then you need to and ready to move into something beyond hate and hurt and anger, okay? And hopefully all of us can get to that point, because being stuck in hate isn't going to help. It's easy to go, fuck those motherfuckers, and we can say that forever. But how does that advance the conversation? How does that advance our objective, which is to stop this from happening? If we are always, and some might say justifiably, ready to like fight and take them down and kill them and the whole bit, that's not really moving us toward a better life, a better world. Not really. It's toward a better way of living for all of us. And so as long as there's this level of hatred, I believe we have the responsibility to combat it with the stronger force, which is love. And you can choose to read anyone you want. Avery, I think you put up something about Martin Luther King before. Eventually said, blue-eyed, brown-eyed, white-skinned, brown-skinned, whoever, you are all my brothers. And Allah talks about love. I don't care what religion you look at, any of the world philosophies are all ultimately about the same thing, which is love your brother, be kind, don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, don't kill. And so I think that's our job now. If you can do it now, great. Even if you're angry and you can still go, God, please, God bless them. You don't have to bless them yourself. If you can go, I'm so angry and I hope they die. Maybe that's how you feel, but Father, heaven, help them, right? Maybe that's as far as you can go with it right now. And that's then good, do that. But I really feel like the way to, so let that sit with you for a while. Let me know what you guys think. I'd love to hear your comments. Send me some information about, how this is affecting you, whether it's today or over the next few days. I've been getting lots of comments about some of the different things I said, and I'd love to hear from you. So I hope that helps. Mwah! As you can see, I'm doing better. I'm feeling better, and I hope you guys are too. Okay, sending love, of course, to the families, everyone who's affected. You guys well. I hope you have a great day. Bye.